Let's talk about the outrages associated with this case. Stuff that you should really and truly be angry about. Here you have Kenzie, a grown-ass man, not willing to take responsibility for his own actions. He's acting like a child. He texts to his wife Michelle, quote, "If I go to jail, this is who did it to me," unquote. Let's be real. This is a man that was fully aware of the fact that he was breaking the law. When the woman said she would call 911, he stood there and did nothing. He had every opportunity to get his act together and move his barbecue over to where it would be perfectly legal, and then there was not a single chance that he would suffer any consequences. And here he is, blaming somebody else for his own lack of action and making a complete and utter fool of himself in the process. It's absolutely outrageous that he would say that. I can't tell you how many comments I've read that fat shame the woman that called 911. They call her all kinds of disgusting names that nobody would say in real life, that nobody would say in polite company. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's outrageous. And all the people out there in the hate cesspool know who they are. It's simply outrageous to see that level of stupidity and immaturity and vulgarity in the comments. This next one is probably the most outrageous thing about this whole story. Michelle encounters the woman that called 911, and she cynically manipulates her and falsely alleges that she is a racist. And in this climate, that woman stood no chance. Michelle cynically manipulated that woman and exploited her against her will. Michelle was a race pimp, fabricating a fake narrative to advance her own agenda. And that set off a firestorm of hate on social media. And she knew it was going to become a firestorm. It's simply not true, and she's taking advantage of all of the haters and people out there that can't think straight to set this whole process in motion. That moment when she turned on that good woman and falsely accused her of being a racist is absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely outrageous. And it could have ruined her life. This next one is almost comical, but it's also outrageous. You have 6 adults in the park. They probably all have cell phones, and they can all pull up the map for the park showing where you can do regular gas barbecuing and you can do charcoal barbecuing. Those 6 grown adults were unable to read a map. It's so absolutely ridiculous. The woman that called 911 tells them at least 17 times on Michelle's clip that they're in the wrong part of the park. They're looking at their cell phones, and you can see this slide. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that they were in a part of the park that was for gas grilling only. So here you have 6 fully grown adults unable to read a map. And that is part of the problem that set off the firestorm also. How utterly ridiculous and outrageous is that? This next one is also totally outrageous, and it's actually a soul-draining thing. Michelle decided to post that video, and already the climate in America was such that videos were going viral, and people were being harassed and threatened and were being given death threats. And she posted it anyways, knowing full well that if it did go viral, that woman would get mass amounts of hatred, and it would pull the crazies out of the woodwork who would start uttering death threats, but it would also reach out to the hardcore thugs who would also give her death threats. That woman probably got between 500 and 1,000 death threats in the first week. She must have been totally terrified and totally terrorized, afraid to step outdoors. And she wouldn't know if she might be killed in 1 week, 3 weeks, or 3 months. She could be walking down the street and 3 people could gang up on her and pull her into an alleyway and beat her to death. Or she could be shot, assassinated by some psycho. The posting of that video in that context is absolutely outrageous, and it's a disgrace. It's an act of evil, and it should never be tolerated. And this madness has to stop. That woman was 100% innocent, and it's so outrageous that she was trying to do a good thing, and here she is having to worry about losing her life from just walking down the street. It's sick, and it's outrageous, and it's disgusting what Michelle did. And this next one is another moment of outrage and moral bankruptcy and failure to do the right thing. A couple of days into this fiasco, Michelle, Kenzie, and Deacon could have surveyed the scene and seen the avalanche, the tsunami of hatred against this woman, seeing the media storm against this woman, and actually brought some sanity to the debate. They could have done a press release and said, hey, okay, we had a beef, but the truth is the police came and they shut down the barbecue. It was illegal. We acknowledge that. We want to put out the word that what this woman did was actually correct. So everybody needs to chill out, and we need to take a second look at this situation. But they didn't do that. They did not do the morally correct thing. If they had some character, they would have done that. It would have taken the wave of insanity and hatred and potential death threats against that woman, and they would have shown that they had character, that they were big enough to admit that they were wrong. They probably would have gotten good press for doing that. But no, they just let the lie run on and on and on. They never came out and said, hey, you know what? We actually were wrong. The police came and showed us the ordinance. We understand why we can't have charcoal barbecues when there's no disposal facilities. In the future, we're going to act correctly. We want to turn this into a positive learning experience, and we want the hatred and the violence directed at that woman to stop. And we can't forget the mainstream media, the news, or in this case, should I say the fake news. The people in the news media saw such a strong force of hatred and violence directed towards this woman that they did not have the courage to truly challenge it. I'm sure many of them were afraid of losing their jobs if they did some investigation and tried to make an unbiased reporting of what was going on. So they only paid lip service to the issues of the fact that they broke the law, the issue of public safety and making sure there was no chance that children would get horrifically burned was not even mentioned once in the news, and that's fake news. So the mass media showed how weak-kneed they are, and it's a disgrace, and we've got to move past this insanity, this phase we're in, because it's just not healthy. People need to get a balanced perspective on what's going on in the world. And if the news media can't even give you an unbiased and a balanced perspective on a simple news story like this, then you may as well just pack it all in. So, total outrage that the media failed totally to properly cover this. This is like the Covington kid story, but without the second half of the story. And finally, we end with a little bonus. It's a comment about this story that dates back to when it first started from somebody online that I found. And I can't tell you how many times I've read people say that nobody supports this woman. You're crazy. That's because you're living in the disconnected unreality of the hater cesspool in the YouTube comments. The truth is, any person with common sense would support respecting the barbecuing laws for the park, because if you're in the wrong place in the park, you've got no place to dispose of your coals, and that spells danger for children playing in the park. So here's a comment from somebody from Oakland who expresses support for the woman known as BBQ Becky. And you should read it and seriously think about what this person has to say.